All right, so we have a question here. Okay, it says last year, Kenworth Enterprises experienced major operational problems affected, which affected the company's financial condition, forcing management to temporarily suspend dividend payments. It is expected that the company will not pay dividend. Yes, the company will not pay dividend in 2025 and 2026, but will declare a dividend of 50 kwacha per share in 2027. Dividend growth is expected to be 3% in 2028 and 2029, and then grow at the rate of 5% from 2030 to 2034. And thereafter, growth is expected to indefinitely be the same as the economy, 6%. The required rate of return is 10%. So, what we're required to do first thing, we need to calculate the expected dividends for 2025 through to 2034. B, we need to find the value of the stock today. C, if you buy shares in Kenworth Enterprises in 2029, what price would you be willing to pay per share? Ignore inflation. All right, colleagues. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to calculate the expected dividends. All right. So the way we calculate the expected dividends, this is the formula. D1 equals DO plus 1 plus the growth rate. D1 represents the expected dividend. DO represents the dividend that is paid or the previous dividend, the earlier dividend. Then G represents the growth rate. So for these dividends that this company will be paying from 2027 up to 2034, we have to calculate the expected dividend. And as we can see, the dividends are going to be growing. All right. So we can make a simple table like this one. Okay. You have the year, you have the dividend here, and then the third column, you have the expected dividend. Okay. So in 2025, there will be no dividend, so there can't be any expected dividend. 2026, there's going to be no dividend, so there's no expected dividend. 2027, they tell us they're going to pay a dividend of 50 kwacha. Okay, in the question they told us 2027 they'll pay a dividend of 50 kwacha. Right now, this dividend hasn't got any growth rate attached to it, or we're not told about any growth rate prior to this dividend. All right. So basically, this dividend for 2027, the expected dividend will be still the same amount, 50 kwacha. Now, before I go any further, colleagues, Any questions? Because we're moving at a slow pace so that you grasp the concept of what's happening here. Yes, any questions so far? Um, I haven't heard you, madam. Okay, so we continue then. Excuse me. All right, so now they told us in the question, if you remember here, they said dividend growth is expected to be 3%. Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. I don't think that was a question. Yes, they told us the dividend growth is expected to be 3% from 2028 to which year? Yes, 2028 and 2029. All right. So the growth rate is 3% for 2028 and 2029. Okay. So here, I just did here, this is the 1 plus G. That's what I was doing here. The growth rate, you always convert it into a decimal. Okay. That's why I put 1.03 and also 2029, 1.03. This 1.03 just represents a 3% increment or a 3% growth. So when we get back to our table, okay, in 2028, all right, our expected dividend, DO, the dividend for the previous year, which was 50 kwacha for 2027, multiplied by 1 plus G. And our 1 plus G already calculated on top there, it was 1.03. So we're going to say 50 times 1.03. Let's get our calculator so that we confirm, so that we don't say, Mr. Mwaba was lying to us with figures. So 50 times 1.03, you get 51.5. Okay. So this dividend of 50 kwacha has grown by 3% and it's going to be 51.5 kwacha. Any questions before we go to the next year? Okay. 2029 is growing again by 3%. So remember, for expected dividend for the previous year multiplied by 1 plus G. Okay, so the dividend for the previous year, 51.5, expected dividend for 2028, multiplied by 1.03. So 51.5 times 1.03, we get 53.05. So meaning this dividend of 51.5 has grown by 3% and is now 53.5. Any questions? Okay. Then they tell us in the year from 2030, the dividend is expected to grow by 5% from 2030 to 2034. Okay, so here, as you can see, our growth rate 1 plus 0.05, 0.05 is the 5% growth rate, we get 1.05. So we get back to our table. In 2030, the expected dividend, the dividend for the previous year, which is 53 kwacha 5 ngwe, times 1.05, we get 55.7. Okay. So this dividend of 53.05 has grown by 5%. So it's now 55.7. Okay. Basically, colleagues, the way you calculate percent increments is what this formula is telling us here. Okay. If you want to say something has grown by 20%, okay, you multiply that number by 1 plus 0.2, 1 plus 0.2 years, you get a 20% increment. So even here, the way you just get percent increments is what we are doing here, colleagues. Okay, it's not anything new. All these dividends, we're just saying they're growing by a certain percent. All right. In 2031, the dividend has to grow again by 5%. So this 55.7, since it's growing by 5%, we multiply times 1.05, we get 58.5. 2032, again, this dividend, so 58 point, this was rounded down to 58.5. This dividend of 58.5 is growing again by another 5%. So do 58.5 times 1.05 becomes 61 kwacha 41 ngwe. Okay. 2033, again, this dividend of 61.41 is growing by 5%. So 61.41 times 1.05, 64.48. I believe we are now getting the pattern of what's going on here. Are there any questions so far? 2034, again, this dividend of 64.48 is growing by 5%. So 64.48 times 1.05, 66.70. Okay. So these are the dividends we expect in these years, or we expect Kenworth to pay in the future. Okay. These are the dividends we expect them to pay in the future. Yes. Now, any questions? We start, Mr. Muhango, Madam Tandiwe, Madam Chilufya, Madam Lufunda, Madam Mary. Any questions? It's the assignment two. I'm sharing it. Right now, I'm not sharing it. Right now, I'm not. But are you able to see it? I'm getting back to it. Because when you're quiet, I might be kicked out and then I'm just speaking to myself. So I have to make sure that there are people. I'm sharing it now. Are you able to see? Okay, try to log in and log out. Try to log in and log out. But it's being recorded. Okay. My try is everyone else can see my screen? Okay, yes. So that's how you calculate expected dividends, okay? Just the way you find a percent increment for any other number, that's is the same way you're finding the expected dividend. We can move to part B. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yes. Then you change 5%, yes. Yes, as you can see here, 2028 and 2029, it was growing by 3%. That's why you're seeing I'm multiplying by 1.03, 1.03. 2030 to 2034, it's growing by 5%. So I'm multiplying by 1.05. Yes. We can go to part B now. Okay, so the next part is what is the value of the stock today? Okay, so as I said here, so we're dealing with the stock valuation. Okay, so the way we value a stock, colleagues, we discount all the future dividends. Do you remember what I mean by the term discount? When I say we discount all the future dividends that will be paid into today's value. That's how you value a stock. Think of it like this, all right? You build a house and you want to find out what is the value of this house. You can forecast the rent that you'll be receiving in the future. Maybe in year one, you receive 100,000 rent. In year two, you receive 200,000 rent. In year three, 300,000 rent. Right? Now, if you want to find the value of that house, that rent in the future that you'll be receiving, you convert it into today's value. And that will be the value of your house. That is the same principle that is being applied here. Okay, the value of a stock or a share is the present value of all the future dividends that will be paid out. Any questions? Madam Tandiwe, Madam Lufunda. Yes, any questions? Madam Mary? Yes, it's the present value of all the future dividends. Yes. Okay. So all the dividends that will be paid in the future, you turn them into today's value. That is the value of the stock. So in this question here, what it means, we are going to have to get the present value for all those expected dividends. All right. We'll find the present value of all of them. All right. Now, an important point, okay, when valuing stock, there are three methods. Okay. This is basically the dividend valuation model. There are three methods. There's constant growth, where the dividend is growing at a constant rate forever. This is not what we're dealing with here. There's also the no growth model, where the dividends are not growing. And then you've got the growth phase model. This is where the dividend, the growth rate will be changing. Okay. But at a certain point, okay, at a certain point, the growth rate has to remain the same forever. Because remember, these dividend payments, okay, we don't have an end date. Okay, you might as well pay the dividends forever. Or as long as the company is there, the dividends will still be being paid out. So there must be a certain point, okay, because with these questions that we're doing this third model here, the growth phase model here, okay, where the growth rate changes. So there will be a certain point where the growth rate will now stay the same forever. Okay, so it's and that is just to account for the dividends for the until the end of time, basically. Okay. So the first question that we need to know is in what year, what is our starting year, basically? So, colleagues, in this question, what year do you think is the starting year? Because if you get the starting year wrong, when you're discounting, you'll be you'll be using the thing. You'll be using wrong years. So, colleagues, this question, what year are we starting? What Yeah, what year are we starting? You all saw this question? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay, year zero is which year now? Is it 2025, 2024, 2020, whatever? Year zero is the first day of year one. So I'm saying which year is going to be our year zero? Hey, colleagues, we also know, madam. 20, you've got 2026 before that and 2025. So if you use 2027, that would be wrong. No, it's 2024. Yes, 2024. Okay, because here said it is expected the company will not pay a dividend in 2025. So if they said this year, we would have assumed that, but they said in 2025, so we're saying next year basically. So that's your starting point. Okay, 2024 is your starting point. Now, as I said, this dividend it grows for 3%, then it's also going to grow for 5%. Then afterward, it's going to grow for 6% forever. Okay, in perpetuity basically. Okay, it's going to be forever now. Okay, so now this is where the terminal value comes in. Okay, colleagues, the terminal value comes in because it's just accounting for all the dividends from 2035 and onwards. Okay, it's accounting for the dividends for 2035 to infinity. Okay, so you have to get the terminal value. Okay, so the formula of getting the terminal value is this one here. Okay. So DTV, this is just the expected dividend for the year for the terminal value. All right. So to get this DTV, in books you won't find it as DTV, but here I just put it as DTV so that you know that this is expected dividend. All right. So the dividend for DTV, all right, won't get the expected dividend. The way we're getting the expected dividend earlier on, that's what we're just doing here for the numerator. RE or KE just represents the required rate of return. This is the minimum return that the shareholder wants. Then to the business side is the cost of equity. Then G is the growth rate. Okay. So we need to get our terminal value also. Okay. So first let's get our expected dividend for the terminal value. So you get the dividend for the last year, which is 2034. We said the dividend is going to be growing at 6% until infinity. So our growth rate is going to be 6%. So I put here 1.006. All right. So the dividend for 2034 multiplied by 1.06, you get this expected dividend of 71.7. Any questions before we move further? We're trying to calculate the terminal value, madam. The terminal value is accounting for the dividends after 2034. Okay, madam? Terminal value is accounting for the dividends for after 2034. All right. So to get your terminal value, this is the formula. Okay. Expected dividend on top divided by the required rate of return, excuse me, minus the growth rate. So to get our expected dividend for the terminal value, you get the dividend for the final year, which is 2034, and you multiply it by the growth rate. The growth rate, as we were told, is 6% until infinity. 6% for until infinity to just remain at 6%. So we multiply this 67.7, which is the expected dividend for 2034, times 1.06, and we got our expected dividend 71.7. Is that okay, madam? Okay, our required rate of return is the question that was given to us. Required rate of return is 10%. Okay, and this will be our discount factor. Right, it also be our discount factor. So yes, so our required rate of return 10%, which is 0.1. The growth rate of the dividend 6%, which is 0.06. All right, so excuse me. Uh-huh. hmm Colleagues, can someone repeat for him? I want to see if anyone has understood. Can someone repeat for him? Starting from here, the terminal value. Even though you get it wrong, at least you see where I've got it wrong. Madam Tandil, could you please break down to Mr. Crucial what we're doing right now? Even though you get it wrong, it's part of learning. Here, we're here to learn, not to laugh at mistakes. So, yes, you can go ahead, madam. Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Tandiwa. Let me just iron up your explanations, but at least I've seen you've also got some points there. Okay, let me just iron it up. Okay. So the terminal value is accounting for all the dividends after 2034. Okay. The dividends are going to continue forever. As long as the company stays, those dividends are going to continue basically. That's what we're assuming. Okay. So the terminal value is accounting for all those future dividends after 2034. Okay. We've been told after 2034, the constant growth rate will now be 6%. So the dividends from 2034 and above, starting from 2035 to infinity, the growth rate will just be 6% for those dividends. So to get your terminal value, this is the formula first. Okay. The expected dividend over the required rate of return minus the growth rate. That's where Madam Tandiwe ended. Madam Chirufya, can you proceed to tell Mr. Crucial where we're at now on this part here? Or maybe this to explain to him how I got the 71.7. Let's see, Madam Mary, would you be able to do that? Remember, even though you get it wrong, at least you're going to say, okay, this is where I messed up when I iron out your explanation. And you'll be able to say, okay, no, that's where I made a mistake. Okay, that's now if you're hiding, you will leave this class maybe even blank. And I don't want anyone to leave blank. At least you have to get something from this class. Yes, Madam Lufunda, could you explain to Mr. Crucial how we got the expected dividend for the terminal value? Eee. Okay, Madam Tandiwe, maybe you could finish up. Okay, just the way we're getting the expected dividends earlier is the same way we're getting the expected dividend here. Okay, so you get the dividend for the last year, which is 2034. Okay, in this case here, for our case here, the last year 2034, we multiply it by 1 plus g, and we've been told after 2034 the growth rate will be 6% forever. So that's why we brought here this 0.06. So you're going to say 67.7 times 1.06, you get your expected dividend of 71.7. Is that okay, Mr. Crucial? Madam Tandiwe, is that okay? Madam Mary, is that okay? Madam, Madam, Madam Chilufia? Remember, I'm giving you questions after this, so you'll be saying is that's okay. I'll be expecting your answers. And those who and those who don't submit their answers, what should happen, Mr. Crucial, for those who don't submit their answers? I shouldn't send them my solutions. Yeah, I won't send you my solutions. Okay, because I want all of you to graduate. Okay, no one should be stuck with this course. Okay, it's painful to be stuck with one course when you've reached this far. Okay, so 0 0.1, the required rate of return, which was 10%, it's in the question, minus the growth rate 0.06, we get 0.04. And we say 71.7 divided by 0.04, you get 1094, 1794.05. Any questions? For now, we begin the discounting. This is 2025, 2026, 27, 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 2032, 2033, 2034, and terminal value. Colleagues, the terminal value, when you're discounting, when you're converting it into the present value, okay, you use the same year number as the last year. Do not put terminal value year 11 in this case here because it's we've got 10 years. Okay. So for the terminal value, when you're discounting it, you're going to use the same time as the last dividend or the last year that was given in your series. Okay. I hope we've got that point when discounting. So the expected dividend we're discounting since it's 1 year from 2024. So it's going to be to the power 1. Okay. 2026, since is 2 years from year 4, to be the time that's going to be used is power 2. Now I'll show you what I mean. Because colleagues, remember the formula for present value is present value equals future value 1 plus r to the power negative t. Okay, if you thought You were saying buy to financial management. It is back here, right? Or it can be written as FV over 1 plus R to the power T. So when I was saying those years, 2025 is 1 year from 2024, 2026 is 2 years from year 4. This power of negative T, okay, is going to be following these years here. That's what I was trying to illustrate. Okay, that power negative T is going to be following these timelines here. Okay. So this is the formula we're using. Okay, we're just converting all those expected dividends, we're just converting them into the present value. All right. Yes. Think of it like how we used to do the net present value technique, similar to what we're doing here, basically. It's only that we're not going to compare it against the cost. All right. So in 2025, no dividend is paid, zero, zero. Present value is zero. 2026, no dividend is paid, zero, zero. Now, when we come to 2027, right, our future value is this 50 here. Because remember, we're doing present value equals future value 1 plus R to the power negative T. So in this case, for 2027, future value, it is 50. Our discount rate is the required rate of return. Okay, colleagues? This R, which represents the discount rate, is the required rate of return, which was 10%. Okay, to the power negative 3. All right, because 2027 is 3 years. I've seen 3 years from 2024. That's what I was saying, to the power negative 3. Any questions? So when you multiply 50 times 1 plus 0.1 is, that's how you get 1.1. These 1.1s here, I've just added this 1 plus 0.1. All right. So 50 times 1.1 to the power negative 3, you get 37.566. You come to the year 2028. Okay, we go back to our number line. 2028, it is 4 years from 2024. All right, so our negative to be to the power negative 4. Okay, so as you can see here, 51.5 times 1.1 to the power negative 4, 35.175. Same. 2029, it is 5 years from 2024. So you see, we put to the power negative 5 there. So 53.05 times 1.1 to the power negative 5, get 32.939. Okay, remember, colleagues, these values here, the expected dividends we were calculated earlier on, we're just converting them into today's value. Okay, so I believe we're getting the pattern here. Okay, 2030, 6 years from 2024, So expected the dividend here, which is the future value, 55.7 times 1.16 to the power negative, 1.1 to the power negative 6, you get 31.44. And you do the same, 2031, 2032, 2033, 2034, and then also for the terminal value. And as I said, the terminal value, notice we're doing it to the power negative 10. Okay, not to the power negative 11. Okay, because we're assuming this starts at the end of year 4, at the end of 2034. Okay, the perpetuity starts at the end of 2034, not at the beginning, at the end of 2034. So the terminal value and the last year, they should their time should be the same. Do not put the terminal value on the next year. You get the question wrong. Okay, use the time for the last year in the series that you're given. Okay, so for a terminal value, the power negative 10. And then once you get all these present values, you add them up. Okay, and when you add them up, this is the price of the stock today. In 2024, this stock, that's its price. Any questions?